everybody probably aware how this everything started, and this was definitely not a natural migration flow. It was, as we are saying, hybrid aggression against us, because our neighborhood regime, they tried to exploit migrants, use them for their domestic, national, political purposes, abuse international law for this reason, putting people in the dangerous situation, risking their lives even, not only health. And that was as a result of the process of scammers who tried to convince these people that this easy route, cheap route, available for them going farther to Europe. And that was started. Started everything also after all known events when the Belarusian regime hijacked a civilian plane with the Protasevich on board, as you remember, and there were sanctions introduced against Belarus, and then was statement of the Russian leader that he will flood, to quote, by migrants and drugs, European Union, and definitely in particular neighborhood Lithuania. And that started immediately after he warned that to be happen. So we noticed dramatic change in the situation, total non-cooperation of border guards of Belarus, although so far it was quite normal, business-like, everyday contacts, discussions about the same trafficking issues and drugs and other problems were definitely addressed quite in the working business manner. But after this warning, everything stopped. And last time when Belarusian authorities informed Lithuanian counterparts on the expected attempts to violate border was 17th of September last year. Then there was numerous of occasions, and there were 300 written notifications about border incidents. Officers report every border violation via phone lines which are existing, but so far no reaction, no response. In general terms, they're rejecting everything, saying that nothing happening. We're also receiving, evidence from those witnesses or participants of this process when they're really not denying that they were guided by officials, allegedly also border guards, to the border, were advised where to cross illegally border with Lithuania, doing that during the nighttime usually. So they definitely misled because they expected that somebody will pick up them on the other side of the border and they will continue their journey to the destination they would like to see, and it's definitely farther into Europe. It's also quite surprising, we cannot deny the facts, as I said, very easy to prove that this is happening artificially, aggressively, because it was announced beforehand. They're not hiding. They said that they will not stop, but they didn't say that they even encourage. So that's a bit difference. Also, we have to admit that this is a bit strange and weird that Minsk became a very popular tourist destination. Mm-hmm. People coming for various reasons, with tourist visas, by the way, tourist visas in the possession, which means they are coming to the safe country for tourism and suddenly converted into potential migrants, which is also a bit suspicious. The investigation process, which is conducted according to the law, with all procedures, resulted that so far 200 cases overviewed. No one from them was granted refugee status. And that also says about something, about the nature of the process and about the situation we have. Also, I'd like to say that we appreciate very much support by our allies, the European Union, and the support which is coming from European Union institutions, Frontex, DG Home, expertise, material support. We constantly updating list of requirements, and this list is definitely always amended because more requirements are fulfilled, but we're still in need on better protection of our border, and especially we need interpreters, social, cultural mediators with the knowledge of Arabic, Kurdish languages in order to communicate to the people, to bring them back to reality, basically. since they were misled, they were deceived, they paid their money to the scammers, and suddenly appeared in the situation which is really very difficult for them. Now we have some pause. We also have to say we have the pause in the process, so it's not yet sustainable, so it's nothing to celebrate or to say that something already concluded or done. But nevertheless, these symptoms show that something happened in the right way, especially after 2nd of August, when it was agreed that we cannot permit this massive flood of irregular migrants. We should stop from illegal entering our border, and they should be guided to the official border checkpoints, what was done. And since then, this process was actually stopped. How long it will last, what will go next, very difficult to say, but we have to state here and now that this was not natural process. It cannot be treated like natural migration process and should be adopted in our methods and in our policy, migration policy, how to deal with these issues, not to allow Belarusian regime to abuse international law, to use in the fight against European Union, basically. And their revenge or whatever other reasons or purposes are, but they are definitely shouldn't take place, and that's important to see. We also appreciate cooperation with countries like Iraq so far. They're looking at the issue very seriously, into the matter, in-depth, so to say, attitude, and they also sent their people here to Vilnius and continue to cooperate with our institutions. We believe this is really a very serious approach. Especially we welcome decision to stop flights from Baghdad to Minsk. Again, it's not sustainable as well. We don't know how long it will last. It's important also to look for, well, to prevent other alternatives, because they are looking for another alternatives, another air companies to conduct all these overflights, which is really very complicated, because people now are concentrated in Minsk. We hope that they will come back to Iraq. I'm talking about Iraq because now there's most biggest number of irregular migrants from that country, but this is moving target, and we don't know what will come next. So we believe that this decision to stop flights and to prevent alternative routes will be stopped, and we expect the assistance of our allies, definitely informing people that this is not the best way for them to travel to Europe, and instead of that they have to choose legal ways, and that's the only way they can really travel, and this is an important note. So I expect questions from all of you, but as promised, now would be statements of the Vice Minister of Interior and later Commander of Border Guards. Please, Vice Minister.
Thank you, Ambassador. First of all, I'm representing Ministry of Interior. Since the statewide emergency situation is declared in Lithuania, Ministry of Interior is managed whole the process. And as well, we are in charge of such important institutions as State Border Guards Service, as the commander is next to me, and Migration Department. So all the procedure is under our supervising. So, as the ambassador said, situation is currently stabilized, and recently with the inevitable decisions on border control, situation is quite, let's say, business as usual. But we are very concerned that suspended flights can be resumed whenever. And so far, the break gives us a chance now to more focus on the procedures of asylum seekers' procedures, as well on the accommodation issue. So first of all, we are concerned about vulnerable migrants, and even the crossings of the border in unmarked ways is not yet eligible. Within the last 2 weeks, as the new legislation were amended, about 80 migrants allowed to enter Lithuania. Mostly they are from vulnerable groups. and all recent migrants, vulnerable migrants, find themselves in Lithuania for only humanitarian reasons. And so all others can redirect it to border crossing points or to consulates. As well, new positive change that Iraqi citizens who entered the country illegally in June has started to leave Lithuania voluntarily. The first mark was after the after the visit to Lithuania, a high-level Iraqi Minister of Foreign Affairs delegation, where they convinced some people to leave Lithuania on voluntary way. So far, tickets have already been purchased for up to 20 migrants, and they're in process to voluntarily return to Lithuania. Of course, other important aspect of our activity is international coordination and EU response, along with, of course, Ministry of Interior. But next week, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow is called by the Slovenian presidency, so special format Home Affairs Ministers meeting. Integral political crisis response meeting in VTC format, where we will discuss with our counterparts solidarity measures to ensure funding, of course, from European Union institution, as well as the political approach. And the once mentioned suspension of flights for Iraq is definitely response and common efforts, both by Lithuanian Republic and EU institution as External Action Service. We need to ensure that hybrid aggression against the European Union and whole West society is a wrong way for dictatorship regime, and the migrants, the people, those who try to cross Lithuanian border, not to be weapons or weaponized the policy. So after this format, we will require also the response from the European Council for strategic decisions to change asylum procedures in European Union. We want to emphasize that the irregular migrants arrive in Lithuania illegally from the safe country, from Belarus, where they enter with a visa, mostly as a tourist, and this already raises reasonable doubts about their motives. So any actions to cross the border really is illegal, as they want to leave Belarus as the tourism destination country. So few figures. As you know, about 4,200 irregular migrants are already accommodated in very different places across the Lithuania. 2/3 of them are coming from Iraq. We just estimated that half of them is Kurdish origin, and half of them are Arabian origins. But as well, the big number of African country origin, as I want to mention Congo, Cameroon, Guinea, and others. So if you would ask about the recent development in Afghanistan, what you have seen on TV few last days, already we have in our accommodation centers about 80 Afghanistan citizens, and they also asking for asylum application. So as I mentioned, the whole number 4,200. And about 1,900 asylum applications already submitted to the Migration Department, and about 1,300 already in proceeding. So once I mentioned voluntary return policy, since this week, Migration Department together with Border Guard Service and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs composed a team, so-called mobile teams, and they have started to visit those accommodation facilities in the municipal premises to register them, first of all, to ask about their intentions. Either they will apply for asylum seeker status or refugee status, or they perhaps need to be convinced voluntary return. So special legislation now allows for migrants who wishes to return voluntarily to her origin country. They will receive travel tickets abroad and some travel money, cash benefit for 300 euros. So as I mentioned, first dozen of such migrants already registered to return. And another important thing what we are challenging as a Ministry of Interior, of course, and all our institutions is accommodation. Because we have found some opposition, of course, from local communities when we start to accommodation processes and finding the sites for the camps. But actually improve the conditions of life is a key importance, because cold autumn season is coming, and our plan is included such action as purchasing and renting modular container houses for accommodation. We will expand it to the three main sites in Pabradė, Foreigners Registration Center, Medininkai, border school, as well as the Rūdninkai polygon. So that process is underway. And this break and suspension of flights help us to concentrate on both priorities as acceleration of the migration applications, asylum applications, and improving the accommodations. So perhaps some details will continue Commander of the State Border Guard Service, General Lubajevas.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I could not agree more with Ambassador Linkevičius in his assessment of the situation as an act of aggression from the neighboring countries using people whom we consider to be victims in order to achieve some political goals and use them as a tool in order to put some pressure on European Union in general and specific member states like Lithuania in particular. Today I would like very briefly to give you an overview of the situation at the border. It was already mentioned that since the beginning of the year, almost 4,000 irregular migrants have been detained at the border with Belarus. And if we look at the trends and the dynamics of the situation since the beginning of the year, we can see quite stable beginning of the year, like in January, February. Already in March, we noticed some flows, increasing flows of irregular migration. Already in April, we had more than 70 irregular migrants apprehended at the border, followed with 77 in May. In June, already 480, almost 500, and the peak was in July, almost with 3,000. Irregular migrants apprehended at the border with the Republic of Belarus. Currently, since the beginning of August, we see the sharp decrease in numbers, and this was achieved because of some additional measures Lithuania have introduced at the border. First of all, additional human resources have been deployed to the border. Lithuanian State Border Guard Service in that situation is also supported by other institutions of the Republic of Lithuania, Lithuanian Army, as well as Lithuanian Police and other institutions under the Ministry of Interior. Moreover, European Border and Coast Guard Agency Frontex has launched border rapid intervention operation at the border with Belarus, with the deployment of additional guest officers as well as the technical equipment which are being used currently at the border. Speaking about cooperation with the neighboring countries, unfortunately I have to mention that this cooperation is limited to the very formal exchange of mails and very formal letters. Unfortunately, the Belarusian Committee on Border Guard does not respond to the request sent by Lithuanian counterparts requesting investigation of some border violations. And this situation actually we observe from the end of the last year. We are talking about certain level of stabilization of the situation at the border, which, as it was already mentioned by the Vice Minister, gives us additional opportunities to concentrate on creation of decent conditions for irregular migrants who already are in Lithuania and accommodated in different locations in the territory of Republic of Lithuania. We really have a very concrete plan in order to create as soon as possible better conditions for irregular migrants, taking into account upcoming winter season and all the efforts right now of the State Border Guard Service, Ministry of Interior, and the government is concentrated on that specific task. That briefly from my side at the moment, and I would be ready to answer to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Before questions will be asked, let me say that you will be, if not yet done, we're circulating so-called fact sheet about the situation. They get some information, more precise. By the way, figures are always changing, so it's also a moving target. But nevertheless, at least you will have some gist about the situation, how it looks like, the tendencies, the facts of non-cooperation, and so on and so forth. So now we'll be ready to answer questions if there are some questions.
Hello, everybody. Now I would like to start the Q&A session, and all journalists are invited to ask your questions. So the floor is yours. We will start with Erhan from the Estonian Public Broadcasting. Sorry for the bad spelling.
Hello, thank you very much for the opportunity. You mentioned a couple of times that there is information that maybe this pause is temporary, and maybe Belarus is trying to find new migration ways or routes. Could you specify on this issue? And another thing, you also talked about EU meetings this week. Do you have some concrete expectations concerning EU at the moment?
First of all, we said that this is a decision for now. It's decided. We welcome this decision, but the perspectives are not certain, you know, so we're saying it's not sustainable. And that's in order to clarify what's happening. And we know that there were Iraqi airlines flights where they came to pick up Iraqis from Minsk back home. That was also a very good tendency, but not yet prevailing so far. We believe that others will also be informed properly, and they will make the right decision, right choice, not to try to penetrate illegally European border, but just to try another time, but in legal way. That's important to note. So this is about the flights, about the European Union. As I said, we appreciate very much cooperation so far and assistance provided, but we need definitely to review migration policy, and we have to make it stronger, more resilient, having in mind also these recent developments where this natural migration process is not natural, it's even not irregular, but sometimes it's used, instrumentalized by the regime, this time Belarusian regime, but next time will be something else. And we definitely should adjust our procedures to make sure that this is happening. Also, we have to strengthen external border. This is also clear, and all means are important. So we're doing that by our own resources, but definitely we expect assistance from our allies, partners, and those who really can do that. And they are doing as we speak, but we definitely expect also something happening in the future. Vice Minister, would like to?
Yes, of course. Once I mentioned special format of Home Affairs ministers, integral political crisis response. So we declare just crisis is the EU-wide, and the migration crisis is just a consequence of hybrid aggression. So that's is a background, and all possible ways to mobilize European response, either with the migration procedures or to prevent, as a general instrumentalization of migration policy. That's a key concern of our meeting, and as well proposal to adjust and update European border management policies. That's also one of the key issues. Yeah, well.
I also maybe add certain things in relation to the tendencies and the situation with irregular migration. In general, irregular migration is a very dynamic phenomenon, and usually there are quite rapid changes in terms of flows. Also, we even right now can see some of displacement effect. Then part of the irregular migrants have already appeared at the borders of our neighboring EU member states, like Poland and Belarus, and Latvia, sorry. It means that usually as soon as you have certain efficient measures at the border, you can expect that there will be a kind of displacement effect. And this irregular migration also can affect other parts of the external borders of the EU.
I would like to ask the journalists if you would like to specify whom you are addressing your question, please let us know. Now I would like to invite Rudolf from Rikar Aziz.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. My first question is for Mr. Arnoldas. Iraqi and Kurdish migrants are said to be in dire condition on your borders. My question is, what is your government doing to rescue them from this condition? And my second question is for Mr. Linas. How is your government, or how far your government has reached in efforts to stop migrants coming from Belarus? And do you think you have been successful in your efforts? Thank you very much.
Yeah. If I may to start, first of all, now it's a task for us identify Iraqi origins itself, either they're from Kurdish society or from Arabian society. So we will be able in the next few weeks to manage identification, first of all. As well, all other procedures, asylum seeker procedures, they are the managing of migration department, and so far all are equal, either is Kurdish or Congo people or Afghani people. So it depends from the background of those asylum seekers. And of course, some of those people, as I understand, and especially in the first wave of that flow, and we have evidence that those people paid huge amounts of money, thousands of dollars, and mostly they were misinformed, misled that it's easy way to enter European Union with all the possible benefits, very good accommodation conditions, hotels, and something like that. But reality bites, and of course, one of our key message to those people, as well Kurdish people, that they are misinformed, misled, and cheated by the gangs. And so far, one of the proper response is offer of Lithuanian government to purchase free ticket to receive travel money and in dignity way return to the origin country. So that's one of the solutions for those people.
Politico Europe, Jacopo Barigazzi.
Thanks, and thanks for organizing this briefing. My first question is for Ambassador Linkevičius, because you said before on Iraq that they are taking it very seriously, but and you welcome the decision to stop the flights, but you don't know yet how long it will last. So since that we were told the decision was until August 15 to stop the flights, I was wondering whether you have any indication that the flights will be stopped for at least the foreseeable future or from until the end of the month. I mean, if you have any indication on for how long the flights will be stopped. Then second question is for whoever might pick it up, is on Afghanistan, if you have any indication that Lukashenko, that Belarus, is trying to attract Afghan refugees into Belarus to use them, to send them to Lithuania. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Let me start maybe first with these flights. I'm saying what we have for granted, that this is for the time being decided like this. It's said that this is for long, but we always, verifying this, and we don't know how it's sustainable. So very difficult to answer to your question clearly that this is really for long. Also, it's one more aspect having to take into account that it's not the only airlines which are operating. There are others. There are alternative airlines. There are transit routes. We know that regime looking for these other transit routes. They're also looking for even for free trade regimes with some other countries, by the way. And also, let me mention that there are also so-called vaccination tourism, as we know. They issued the visa-free regime for 73 countries who can come and stay in country, also temptation to get vaccinated. It also sounds quite weird because 13.4% of Belarusian population is vaccinated. And they were denying for a long time pandemics in general. Now it's also kind of attraction to get these people, and some of them are also from potential areas where migrants coming from. So there are really much more challenges than just this stop of the flights. But as I said, this decision was very important, and we welcome that decision. We believe we will be able to continue in this regard. Vice Minister would like to.
Maybe a brief response to Afghanistan issue. Of course, we are very concerned that it could be a new route. It's, of course, intelligence is investigating the possible scenario, but concern is existing that Lukashenko will try to open a new channel to the European Union, either with flights or with trains. We are not yet informed, but definitely we are concerned.
Radio Free Europe, Richard Jozwiak.
Hello, do you hear me well? Yeah, I assume so. So basically, you talked a lot about the EU and the help you get from the EU, but I understand that Lithuania is also considering or pushing for more sanctions on various Belarusian officials that are facilitating this sort of migratory move. Is that something you're still pushing for in Brussels? And I understand as well that apart from flights from Iraq, there were also talks about flights from Istanbul, or from Turkey, with Turkish Airlines. Is that something you see as well, with people coming and then pushing for the border? Thank you very much.
I'll start by answering to this transit route via Istanbul. We're also talking to Turkish colleagues and allies. We also expect their serious attitude. I believe they understand that these routes are also used by migrants, by irregular migrants. Unfortunately, they could be used also in these schemes, which were organized by Belarus regime, so they know about that, and we hope their cooperation in this regard. When it comes to Belarusian regime, we were always of opinion that this should be very important, robust, tangible measures against them. Isolation of the regime. We'd like to single out also importance of non-cooperation with state institutions, state companies. By the way, let me mention also tourist companies. Some of them are under control of President administration and even issuing visas instead of doing that by state institutions in normal way. You will find that example in fact sheet, what will be circulated, and these companies which were named. So non-cooperation, very important. Also very important, tangible and clear so to say, sanctions with regard to Belavia, a company. So they were prohibited now for the flights to European Union, but they intensifying these flights to other directions, and unfortunately also for these reasons we are talking. So economic sanctions also should be expanded. Personal sanctions on all sponsoring directly involved in migrant smuggling through the border also should be addressed. So this is standing kind of requirement and proposal to our colleagues. It would be wrong now to retreat. It would be wrong now to take this as this challenge from the regime when they are extending this pressure, aiming at changing our policy, aiming to retreat, and it shouldn't be their success. It shouldn't be the case what they are doing. It's very important for everyone to understand, and we are talking along these lines with our colleagues in European Union, elsewhere as well.
Now the question from Ignas Jachauskas, Baltic News Service.
Hello, I've got a couple of questions. First, I think would be to Deputy Minister Arnoldas Abramavičius. You mentioned that there's about 20 migrants that agreed to take the tickets and the payout of 300 euros, yeah, I think, to return to their country, and I assume they are Iraqis. And do you have information when are they leaving? And what about the others? How many do you expect to persuade? And will you consider, I don't know, to raise the bid maybe if they won't agree? I mean, raise that 300 euros sum given to them in return to their agreement to leave Lithuania voluntarily, or I don't know, something else. And one more question would be about, you mentioned the Afghani immigrants. Could you be more precise? When did they arrive? Was it before the seizure of Kabul? And how many of them there are accommodated? When will they be, investigated, their applications?
Yeah, just briefly, I mentioned 300 euros and some facilitation of voluntary return process. Especially first target is the Iraqi origins, because as I mentioned, and Iraqi officials facilitated that process from MFA delegation. Of course, the first destination of them is not to return to origin country. Definitely they dreaming how to enter European Union, doesn't matter which country, or Lithuania, Germany, or Netherlands. So being realistic, some of them who are misled or misinformed, they already choose this opportunity, but our purpose of those mobile groups, which I mentioned, is try to convince those persons that not easy way to get asylum, let's say, seeker procedures, and finally refugee status. So it's very beginning with the tickets is helping Frontex agency. One of the competences of Frontex is support member states with the tickets, either with the commercial flights or order charter flights, but we are not in opportunity to form full charter flights, as the Iraqi officials do not let's say, accept forced returning. So we are on the beginning of the process, just on the beginning of the process, but there is such opportunity. Afghanistan is 80 persons from Afghanistan. They has arrived to Lithuania not with this last wave. They arrived at the beginning of the year, mostly not from Afghanistan itself. Some of them for years has resided in Russia or Belarus, some with quite well Russian language knowledges. So definitely they were not escaping from the regime, from the Taliban regime in those few days when the seize of power take part. But so in this current situation, of course, we will, and our authorities, we will very, let's say, responsibly will take those persons' applications. Perhaps they're really in dangers in their origin country, such as Afghanistan. But very few from them has come in that last few months. A little bit unexpected, but some of Afghanistan people more chosen Polish border, and the Poland authorities informed about a little bit a bigger number of Afghanistan people.
Maybe General would like to add something.
Well, actually, the Vice Minister provided quite correct information in relation to Afghanis. He was absolutely right. Since the beginning of the year, the total number of Afghanis is a little bit more than 80 persons. I also have to say that they never were the biggest group within those arriving legally at the border. So nationals of Afghanistan were always in the top 10 countries of origin, but not the first 3 of them.
We would like to invite a journalist from Iraq, Azar al-Rubai.
Hi, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to say thank you for this opportunity. My first question is about what is the fate of the Iraqis, those enter Lithuania by Belarus border? And the second question is that many of the Iraqis, I talked with them, they are still staying at the Lithuania camp. They told me about the bad health conditions. So do the Lithuanian government will take these issues or the bad health issues into consideration to view their asylum application? Thanks.
So, remarking conditions, of course, we do agree that we need to improve such conditions, and suspended flights from the same Iraqi airlines helps, as well as the new entering procedures helps to take a break and improve conditions. Once the regular migrant, doesn't matter from where, of course, we are equal in treatment, either from Iraq or from the Congo, with the necessity to improve living conditions for them and accelerate asylum seeking procedures. But of course, we now in the process to relocate, first of all, vulnerable people, minors and women's or disabled peoples, from the institutions and accommodation under the supervision of Ministry of Interior to the supervision of Ministry of Social Security and Labor. And so it helps especially vulnerable people improve their living conditions and treat them in the proper way. So just we in the process, and hope we will manage in the near few weeks. And turning back with the as well treatment and identification, there is such challenge, and in the this week we're planning to identify persons in the camps and in the facilities. We currently don't know even either under the voluntary status or regular status. So within the few weeks we will register it. We will ask for their intentions, and we will propose such migrants proper solution what they want to do.
May I add also a bit, it's very important that these people are, as I already said, deceived. Also, they paid money to scammers, the difficult situation, but they should share these stories with their colleagues, with their friends, families, I don't know. Because many of them still expect that they have temporary difficulties, and they will continue their travel to Europe, which is not the case by far. They should know that. Also, it's true that they are given basic minimum conditions, but it's not 3-star hotel. Of course, it's not comfortable like they stayed in Minsk, by the way, in the hotels, waiting this journey. So it's also clear. And by the way, winter is coming, which is also, these conditions will be really granted for them, as I said. Definitely they have some rights, they will be fulfilled. But I don't know whether they're used to this harsh winter conditions. So in all, the situation is not perfect for them, and they should know that. So these options quite clear. As Vice Minister said, those who already went through procedures and those who were denied refugee status, they will face deportation, or they have option for voluntary return, what we insist most realistic and the best maybe outcome from the situation for them. How to share this message, how to make sure that they will be informed properly. It's our common challenge, and we hope that all together with Iraqi authorities, journalists, and us, we are trying to do our best to inform these people, not to stay in this dark in general, because it's definitely too much challenges for them. Although it was their choice, but nevertheless, they shouldn't be victimized again through this situation.
Christian Blanker from the German radio and television.
Hey, I've got two questions. First is for the commander of the state border. We've seen some videos where Belarus side obviously tried to push these migrants over to the Lithuanian side. We heard some sources saying there were even shootings in the air. We don't know which side that was. Could you please describe the situation at the border precisely? We tried several times to film there. It was not possible. So please give me a picture of that. And the second question goes to the Vice Minister. We learned now it's over 4,000 migrants in the country. What is your demand for the EU? Is Lithuania capable of handling these 4,000 during winter times in the land, in the country, or is your plan to bring these people or parts of these people to other countries, for example, Germany? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will very briefly present the situation at the border. You're absolutely right. Even taking into account the certain stabilization, the situation remain tense at the border. And we have quite a number of cases then the Belarusian border guards actually prevent regular migrants from coming back to Belarus, actually blocking their way back, even in case they have travel documents and permissions and visas of Belarus to enter this country. In many cases, those migrants remain on the Belarusian side, close to the border lines, and we are able to observe this situation. Then people stay for quite a long period of time without any additional support from the Belarusian side, would it be a water supply or supply of food. In such cases, we do our best in order to provide those migrants with the necessary stuff like water and also food, as well as blankets in case of the need. We also notice and we observe certain activity on the Belarusian side. We also confirmed fires at other parts of the border. We are not able to identify what exactly happening. We hope that it is not something which is being used against irregular migrants. We do address requests via official channels to the Belarusian authorities in order to explain what kind of actions are going on. And in some cases, when they respond, they explain that this is because of the training activities and exercises which are going on the Belarusian side. We do not have any proof of what. We could not confirm or deny this information. We just can stay what we, from time to time, we hear the shots on the Belarusian side. And the situation remains quite tense at the border, as I have already mentioned. If at the beginning, let's say in May, June, July, the Belarusian border guards, they try to hide their involvement in this illegal activity. Now they do not really hide anymore. They do it openly, pushing the irregular migrants to the Lithuanian side.
Second part of the question about Lithuanian capabilities. As the Lithuania is the first country of entering to EU, we fully fulfilling obligations to the Union and accepting irregular migrants and examining their applications. So we are fully in compliance. Situation, of course, is quite difficult, but now, as I mentioned, is a stabilization, and we are Lithuania, as a member state, is fully in capability to manage all those processes as border protection, accommodation, at least for the numbers now existing. Not, of course, let's say, double-fold or something, but in existing numbers, we are fully managing the situation, and so far hope that it helps us find a way out from the migration crisis. So not yet we are in plans to ask for additional solutions from the European Union.
So our briefing is going to an end. We will take 2 more questions, and we would be very grateful if you could be brief. So now, Al Jazeera, Giedrė Peseckytė, please.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. So first of all, I would like to ask Arnoldas Abramavičius. It was mentioned that improving living conditions is one of the priorities, but what is the condition in the camps right now, and what are the types of camps in Lithuania? Also, I'm interested in what is exact number of the camps